There we go. Well, that's the key. You recorded? Happy days. All right. Welcome back to Follow Through with LVB. I am here with JP Duminy, a guy that was dynamic, exciting to watch. You know, when you came to bat for South Africa, you were one of those guys that I just would sit down and go, just give me half an hour. I'm gonna, well, hopefully a bit longer than half an hour, but I'm gonna watch this guy because
Sure.
you were just a treat, I would say, to watch,
Yep.
and someone that captivated me, especially from a cricket fan point of view. And we're here in Dharamshala. Unfortunately, it's a little bit wet and so we had to go inside, so I can't show you the view. The South Africans are in the same hotel as us. There's been a little bit of backwards and forth. And I asked JP if he'd be keen to sit down and chat, and
Sweet.
Here we are. So thank you so much for
Pleasure,
sitting
man.
down.
Thanks for having me on.
So follow through with LEB is we kind of talk around the journey of a sports person,
Sure.
how they followed through on their dreams and aspirations and ups and downs and whatever. It's more so just let's just start chatting and see where we get to, as the beauty of podcasts. But there's one area, and especially for sports people, that I'm interested in, and that's career transitioning.
Yeah.
How do you smoothly transition?
Right.
And again, you're a cricketer that retired 3 or 4 years ago now. You're now moving into coaching. You've got the JP21 Foundation as well that you started up. You've got a number of sponsorships and engagements that you do as well. So I'm just keen to, I guess, dive into that and see if we can get some nuggets of gold, which would be fantastic. But before we get into that, we're at a Cricket World Cup. You've played a couple of Cricket World Cups.
Yeah.
What are some of your memories of those tournaments?
Sure. Well, thanks for the profile. Great to be on, and great chatting with you, and diving into the World Cup scene. It's definitely a different feel to a bilateral series or any other tournament that you're part of. And often it's interesting because teams often try and have this language and conversation around, let's just treat it as another game of cricket or another tournament or another series. But as much as you try to do that, it unfortunately isn't. It brings about a different kind of pressure, a different kind of feel when you step into the country that you're going to be playing in. So if you think about, India, what does that present for us? It's a nation that treats cricket like a religion in many ways. The cricketers, they treat them like gods. So there's always this different kind of vibe when you come to India. And I've always loved playing here. I've had great opportunities to play in the IPL, played series against Australia across India across all formats. But I think back to 2011. And 2011 was a World Cup in India, and I think the memory that comes to me is Nagpur. We played against India, and they batted first. They were, I think, comfortably about 260, possibly for 3 or 4, and there was probably about 7 overs left or whatever it may be. We ended up bowling them out for about 310. So, at that point, we were thinking we're probably looking at chasing 350 plus, but fortunately, the guys got stuck in, got a few wickets towards the death, and restricted them to that. But then it was a chase, and they had a formidable bowling attack, great spinners, and we had a great start. We had a bit of a stumble in the middle phase. I remember getting out to Harbhajan Singh, getting stumped down the leg side. And Faf du Plessis and Robin Peterson was the ones to hit the winning runs. And they were certainly coming in. India was coming in as favourites in that tournament, and yes, they won the World Cup. But that in particular, we had a sold out crowd in Naipur, and obviously the expectation was there for them to beat us. But fortunately, we got over the line, and that was just an emphatic win. That gave us a lot of confidence going into that tournament. And unfortunately, we stumbled again. As we do in ICC tournaments in a knockout phase, losing to New Zealand in a quarterfinal. So you're pretty happy with that. But as I said, World Cups is just so special, and we've probably flown in a little bit under the radar in this one, which is a little bit weird compared to World Cups before. But again, my role is a different one, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And having had the experiences of World Cups, I have the opportunity to speak to guys realistically of what to expect. And so far, so good. We've had some great performances on all fronts across batting, bowling, fielding, and hopefully we can get another one over you tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting when you talk about the do or die nature of World Cups.
Sure.
And a lot of the test playing nations, they play these bilateral series out of 5 or out of 3. If they lose, it's not a huge issue. You go to the next one.
Yeah.
For the Netherlands or associate countries, we live and die each series we play, each game we play. So you get used to that feeling of like, today's the day. You have to go. We have to come. We have to go. And so it's nice. Well, the feeling that we've got is normal to us.
Sure.
And so I guess that's what for us going into tomorrow's match. It's like, look, we're used to do and die.
Yeah.
And the pressure on the surface is, on South Africa, they should
100%.
beat us. They've been smoking it.
Yeah.
But it's from our point of view, it's like a just opportunity, and we back ourselves. We've had a year of good performances. We beat South Africa in the T20 World Cup through just playing good cricket.
Yeah.
So there's a belief in it, and so it's exciting to be part of it, but also to kind of rub shoulders with players that have been there. And so how with your role as batting coach now, and not having to go out there and play, what's some of the lessons that you've learned in your cricketing career that you try and pass on to these young guys that are now actually having to go out there tomorrow?
It's an interesting one, and I think the first thing that comes to mind is acknowledging and accepting that there's pressure, no matter who you're playing. And as I mentioned earlier, in the World Cup particularly, there's going to be something that's going to be heightened. And I think the lesson that I've gotten out of that is, and I'm sure you would have heard this before, it's not trying to suppress it. So it's, as I said earlier, it is 2 A's that really stands out, is accepting and acknowledging. And if we can do that well, and then the third A being the action that we take is a positive one based upon what we know. And that's certainly something that we've had long conversations about, is that pressure is going to be there. Importantly, how are we going to respond to it? That's going to show the true character of who we are as individuals, as players, and as a team. But the thing about it is, you never have to do it alone. This is a team sport, and as much as there are skill sets in the game that you do individually, you always have an opportunity to lean on a mate. So if you're batting as a partnership. If you're bowling, there are guys on the field that are fighting out there with you. And often under pressure, we feel isolated in that space. So can we really speak a language and communicate in a way that understands we're in this fight together? And I think that's certainly what I've seen from the outside in, is where the Dutch have been so good. Is that, yes, there's a real street smartness about how you guys go about it, but you really operate as a pack of wolves, and you can see that passion and desire to go out and give a strong performance, and you surrender the outcome. You really just want to compete. And I think that's the beauty of sport. And what I appreciate about us talking about tomorrow is that we can do this in a civilized manner, but yet we're going to go compete tomorrow.
Yeah, correct.
And that's the beauty of sport, right? We don't have to be a-holes about it. We can respect each other off the field, but knowing we're going to go on that field and we're going to compete. And that's been the sort of language that I've certainly tried to transfer into our batting group. But in saying that, I just think about this batting group. It's been a top 6 probably that has functioned together for the last 2 years. And there's a great understanding of each other. They understand each other's games so they can influence each other in the heat of the moment. and I'm just there to try and complement that.
Mm. It's funny. Tom Dawson Squibb has obviously joined your group, and he was with us beforehand.
Sure.
And he introduced the 3 A's
exactly.
to us as well. So it's a battle of the 3 A's tomorrow.
For sure.
And it definitely changed my approach to the game, the acceptance. I love that word of acceptance. It's like you accept, first of all, where you're at.
Yes.
Like you're as good as you are today because of all your experiences and your training. But you also accept the outcome regardless of good or bad.
Yeah.
And I love going through that process in my head before even going into the game and going, all right, I've accepted the outcome of getting 5 for tomorrow or getting hit for 100. I've accepted the outcome of winning and losing. I've accepted the outcome of all those things and understand, okay, I know I'm a good person. I know that I'm going to pick myself back up. And so I almost go through that process before I've even gone out there so that when I'm out there, I'm playing a game.
Yeah.
I'm in there. I'm trying to get Klaassen out. I'm trying to get Miller out. I'm trying to get Russie, who's a good friend of mine.
Sure.
And oh my, if I get him out tomorrow, he gone for a long time. But that's the enjoyment factor, and it's made me enjoy the game a lot more. And now I understand when a past player used to come back and talk to us and go, and the main thing is enjoy the game. But I'd sit there and go,
what does that mean?
What does that mean? Like I'm stressing out. I'm like anxiety filled, or all those things. But with that acceptance, I can go, okay, cool. Right, maybe I can enjoy this next spell, or I can enjoy the fact that I have to go out and score X amount of runs.
Yeah.
The ball goes in the air. All right, here we go. So, no, huge word. And I think that's something that I'm going to carry forward into most of my life and outside of the game as well, which I've got you here to talk about is the life outside of JP Duminy, the cricketer.
Yeah.
So who is JP Duminy, the non-cricketer?
Sure. It's a great question, isn't it? And something that I've become more aware of is the question of who are you? And I think what I've realized for myself and being aware of my surroundings and talking to people, we often associate who we are with what we do. So in past times, if you had to ask me who am I would have told you I'm a cricketer. But actually that's not who I am. That's what I do. Who I am is I'm a Christian. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a son. And those are the fundamentals of who I am. Now that doesn't take away the importance of what you do. I think it influences how you do what you do. And I think that's the beauty of it. So with that said, who am I speaks into being a father, speaks into being a husband. And those are fundamental things that, and I'm sure you can relate, is that you really want to try and be good at. We often, and our experiences in life are slightly different because of what we do, because we travel a lot, because we spend a lot of time away from home. And that influences who we are and how we are with who we are. And, it's a constant battle for me. Being a present father when you're on tour, being a present father when you're at home, because you have all this outside noise of you being or trying to be the best you can be in what you do. And it's an amazing journey, to be honest. And I spoke earlier about my faith. So that drives my behavior most times. And for me to be a father, husband, a cricket coach, it starts with that influences how I do things.
Right.
So what are the fundamentals of who I want to be is how I influence people. Creating positive environments, creating mindsets and conversations that are deeper than just the surface level conversation. So it's not just about how you're doing. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. That's the general answer. But how are you really doing? What's really happening behind the layers?
Wow.
And I think the goal for me is to constantly evolve with the understanding of how to peel the layers. Because I think as a cricket coach, particularly, it's so much more than helping facilitate advancement of skills. You have an opportunity to influence people in a way that could change their lives. And that's truly how I view it. So, I'm constantly reevaluating how am I doing things, am I approaching it well enough that lands with guys, but also checking in with myself. Am I doing this for you or am I doing this for me? Do I need this or do they need this? Those are vital questions that, I've discussed with Tom as well. And, there's certainly influenced my thinking. Eric Simons, who's our bowling coach, worlds of wisdom, 61 years old, our grandpa of our team, but have unbelievable conversations about his experiences as a coach. And, for me, it's just such a great opportunity to soak up all these experiences that would shape the way that I try and influence people. Because ultimately, I view the purpose of life maybe slightly differently, in that I view purpose as others, in that how do I influence others? This job is not about me. It's about how I influence others. And if I can do that well enough most times, then that brings me fulfillment.
So has that only come post-cricket career? Or is this a
Great
journey?
question.
Did you have a mentor or someone
Yeah.
or a penny drop moment throughout your cricket career that
So
you understood that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there was an actual penny drop moment, which I'll share in the 2019 World Cup, actually. But it probably started a little bit earlier than that. I started working with a life coach in 2017, which opened up my mind a little bit around purpose, specifically to the point I made. And as cricketers, we can be so encapsulated in our own minds and own worlds, because we can easily judge ourselves on performance, right? And who we are on performance. So if you score 100 or take a 5-wicket haul, you feel like you're worthy. And if you don't,
I'm a great guy.
Yeah. And often we fall into those traps, and I was no different. But in this experience of working with my life coach, he opened up my mind to the idea of it's more than just about you. It became about the idea of influencing the fan base. So I give an example. So if me as a South African cricketer had an opportunity to engage with a fan, whether it be take a picture or an autograph, can you be present for 5 to 10 seconds? Completely present. And the reason why he said that to me was, do you know that you potentially have an opportunity in that short space of time to change someone's life? That shifted my thinking. It really did. So that was the starting point, right? So now I go into the 2019 World Cup. Really amped. We've had a great year. I've had a great personal year leading into the World Cup. I'm thinking of personal milestones. I'm going into the World Cup, 193 ODI games. We play 9 round-robin games. I'm thinking guaranteed milestone of 200 games.
Yeah.
Anyway, we arrive at the World Cup. We play the opening game against England. We get pumped. We lose 4 in a row. Now we're under pressure. And I get left out. I had a poor start to the tournament. So now I'm on 197 games. And I'm like, wow, I did not see this coming. Anyway, I have a conversation with him. I remember after the 4th game, obviously down and out. And he asks me a profound question. What are you going to do with this opportunity? And I'm like, opportunity? I've just been left out. This is, to me, such a profound moment in your life. You have an opportunity to influence this team from a different standpoint. So then, so basically the conversation went to, can you be the best 12th man that anyone has ever seen?
Yeah.
And I took it on. So it changed my mindset to the idea of, I have the opportunity to influence my team from a different, standing in a different way. And that then shifted my thinking. So before games, during games, after games, I was constantly looking for opportunities of influence. And, it's interesting seeing the feedback or hearing the feedback from my teammates. They actually saw like a difference. And that was the penny drop moment for me, in that if I just looked at it differently outside of my personal gain, the fulfillment you get out of that is magnificent. And it was just birthed out of serving others, really. And in the end, I ended up, we didn't qualify for the semis, but in the end, I ended up playing the last 2 games of the World Cup. I'd already announced that I was going to retire from international cricket before the World Cup. Played the last 2 games, ended on 199 one-day games. And obviously didn't achieve the milestone, but absolutely no regrets.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the joy that I've experienced in the last few years, and then obviously transitioning now into a different role, which brought about different challenges, which I'm sure we'll unpack.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's funny when you talk about seeing opportunity, because I just the other day I had a conversation with someone around. He said, "Oh, the red car theory."
Okay.
I was like, "What do you mean the red car theory?" He said, "Well, on your way to training, how many times did you see a red car?"
Okay.
And I was like, "Well, I don't know." He goes, "Okay, well, tomorrow morning, just tell me how many times you see a red car." And he was saying it in a story way, because obviously we were having a conversation, and we kept talking about it. And he said, "Say you see 4 red cars on the way to training tomorrow, but now change that red car into opportunity or opportunities. If you're now looking for opportunities,
Right,
it's amazing how they all just start appearing,
they show
and
up,
your mindset coming out." And I went, "Boof!" And then now you've just mentioned that as well. It's like it's a thing. It's like
Definitely.
if you put your mind out, and this is how we're sitting here right now. Amid my wonderful cameraman, he mentioned your name. I said, "Yep, let's go." I said, "If he walks past us in the next 10 minutes, it's a sign."
I did.
You walk past us, introduce myself, and you're so kind to accept. And it's interesting when you talk about the serving of others. Because we go into this cricket career thinking, all right, I want to average 40.
Yes.
I want to take 200 wickets. I want to win this, that, and the other. And we kind of go through those achievements. You've scored some, wonderful hundreds in Australia. You've had some epic, experiences in the cricket field. But I can imagine your most fulfilling experiences are the experiences.
100%.
And we score that 100 or take that 5 and it's like a wee hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
And then it dissipates, and you go, and you almost have a bit of a low after it, because you're like, I thought this was going to feel
different,
better than what it was. Which is annoyingly you learn later, and you try and tell the younger player, but you just got to know that, all right, at least I've told him he'll get this penny drop moment at some point.
Well, you hope.
You hope. Well, exactly, you hope. Yeah. I guess again, that's the process of your identity.
Yeah.
Like how do you went about that?
Yeah.
And it kind of came later on, and now that's flown into your coaching, which it is all about serving others. So when you were younger, were you just cricket 100%, or how did you? What was your thought of, like, okay, if cricket doesn't work out, what am I going to do? Or what was your thought about how do I smoothly transition out of the game? Did you ever tool up early doors, or what was your journey around career transition or life outside of cricket?
Yeah, it's didn't probably give it enough thought, particularly as a youngster. And the experience, I would say, in the early 2000s, I was very fortunate. So I made my debut for South Africa at age 20. And, was classified as one of those unique talents in South African cricket, youngster, pretty lazy, actually, to be fair. Relied a lot on talent, which then showed itself in international cricket, because, got the opportunity. It was a dismal experience initially, wanted to give up the game, then sort of left out for 3 years, and then had to find my way back into international cricket. But just circling back to this idea of lazy, so that was a significant, flip switch for me, because I was extremely lazy in the sense of I didn't have a good work ethic. Like, fitness wise wasn't something that was top draw for me. I just wanted to play the game. But then I quickly realized that when I got exposed to international cricket, I swear the experience was like I was in this bubble, and I didn't know how to burst it, because, like, it didn't feel real. And the ball all of a sudden felt like it was coming 15 kilometers quicker. The fields look 100 meters, or felt 100 meters. Like, everything just was pronounced in the experience. And then, like I said, I got left out after a Sri Lanka tour and truly wanted to give up the game. I needed to actually find, why did I start playing? I went to the academy, and that was my first question or statement I made, because they asked us, what do we want to achieve in this? And I said, I want to find the love for the game again. And, fortunately, found my way again. But there was a flip switch moment where I got shat on by Alan Donald, who was the high performance coach in 2005 or 6.
Yeah.
Because I just failed the fitness test, like I was dismal. And he crapped all over me in front of the entire squad. And I vowed to myself that I never ever want to feel that way again. And that flipped the switch. Changed my work ethic, my behaviors changed, and that's where I saw my career take a different path. But fast forward a little bit, I had poor coping mechanisms. And, cricket in general probably encourages bad behaviors from time to time, like particularly when you're on tour. And I fell into those traps. And we don't have to go too deep into it, but like that encapsulated me. It overwhelmed me. And I think this is where the faith journey became the saving grace, for me. And that saw a different side to me come out, which then helped me to process this career that you're trying to forge. And particularly in the understanding that, as a youngster, you think that this is your life. But then soon you realize it's only a big part of your life. It's not your life. And that was probably a significant thing that I needed to digest from one of my favorite coaches back home. He said that to me one day, and it hit me. And that transitioned me into different paths. And, the cricketing journey had so many ups and downs. Moments of failure where you want to give up. Moments of joy where you feel like you're on top of the world. And then you get to this point where you just try and balance it out as best as you can. And the people you surround yourself influence that. And this is why, you've heard the cliche, surround yourself with good people. And that couldn't be more true. And, the transition of, if you don't mind, we can probably get into it. The transition of playing to coaching was an immensely tough journey.
Okay.
Immensely tough journey. And the reason for it, I don't think it was necessarily a question of identity. I think it was a question of purpose. And how does that purpose shift? So the back end of my career really became about others and being part of something bigger than yourself. So when you're part of a pretty successful team, you always felt like you were part of something more. Representing 60 million people, and the idea of that really inspired me. And then, even though it was my decision, you wake up one day and the World Cup's done and your career is done. Yes, you've got a couple of leagues to go to, but I just felt so depleted because I felt like, what's my purpose now? I could not play this game just to go and earn a bit of money. And I remember going to Canada. I played in the Canada League in 2019.
Yeah.
And it was the most devastating experience. And the weird thing is I got play of the tournament. But mentally, like if you think of being in a depressive state and masking it, that was my experience.
Just acting.
Just acting.
Yeah.
And I suppressed it through alcohol, through partying, because I didn't know how to deal with this. And yet the performances were there constantly, which is the weirdest experience. But what that taught me was, I went through a bit of a lull, but then I found my way back in understanding the purpose. The purpose was about influencing the next generation of who I was playing with. So even though I'm playing in different leagues, it's identifying, because what happens, I don't know if you've experienced this, but whenever I've played in leagues, the younger generation in those teams gravitate to you massively. They really just want to learn and ask questions. And I saw that as the purpose. And that inspired me to continue, even though it only lasted for 6 months, because that's all I had, mentally. And then I transitioned to broadcasting, which I enjoyed. I found a real love for being part of the game in that way. But that first 3 weeks, I would say, post World Cup was some of the toughest experiences. And then, transitioned into broadcasting and then coaching sort of found me, I would think, in many ways, which I absolutely love now.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. There's so much to unpick in that. Just that we could dive into, and you mentioned purpose a lot.
Sure.
And Simon Sinek, Start with Why.
Yep.
One of my favorite books.
Correct.
And something that pretty much sparked this podcast, this whole kind of conversation with others was the fact that it was like, how do you discover your why?
Yeah.
Like, is there a linear process to like sitting down? Like, how do you connect it to your core values? Do you have to have experiences to then find it? So in that process of finding purpose, you talk about serving others. Did you actually sit down on a process of that, or did it just slowly evolve, and then it seemed like coaching was the best avenue to connect that purpose to? Were there other things apart from coaching where you go, oh, I could do this? And of course, you've got your foundation as well. Maybe speak into that.
Yeah, I think it all fits into this sort of diagram of purpose, right? So I guess in some way the broadcasting journey, there were parts of that I probably battled with, because in many ways, yes, you function as a team, right? So you get fed information, facts, stats. You work with people alongside you. So there is a team component to it. But when you're done, you literally put your mic down and you go home. And I guess that was probably the toughest part of it. There wasn't an emotional connection to the game. And that made me feel like there was always going to be this moment between the two. So I started out where broadcasting was here, coaching was here. I was doing a little bit of one-on-one stuff and mentoring. And I always knew that it's going to shift, right? Because this felt like great purpose in serving others, and you could have a long-lasting effect and influence on others in terms of the coaching. So to come back to the idea of why, that has certainly been a journey in itself, right? To understand one's purpose. And it circles back to the journey of faith for me, right? So what's the purpose of life? And I sat with that question for a very long time. And as I said, my faith journey influenced that, is to knowing God and making God known. So in the circles you operate in, that becomes a core of how you influence, and it affects behavior. And it's not necessarily that I'm going to sit here with you or in a cricketing team environment and now need to Bible bash. No, that's not what it is. It is my behaviors is rooted in that, but ultimately it's through my fruits. Who am I? That's going to come through. And that sparked the why for me. And that's where serving others comes. And, and that goes through different sort of ups and downs. But ultimately, the purpose of my why is really about serving. It's really about serving. Crazy example. When I made a point about changing people's lives in 5 seconds. You think about where we are right now. We're in India. Great love for the sport. Great love for you as cricketers, for us as cricketers. Like, picture this idea of somebody who's a massive fan, and all of a sudden this person is walking behind you, coming into this room, and you open the door and you said, no, you go first. That could change their life. Just because you did something so small in your mind that affected them in a positive way. And how does that spiral or domino effect happen in their lives to others? That's how we create change in the world, I believe. It's through those small moments of influence that ultimately is going to result in something big one day or every day. We have got no idea. And it starts with serving.
Yeah, that's... Oh, I'm so glad that we got a chance to sit down, because again, it's so refreshing to hear. It's so simple. Well, it's not simple because it takes a process to that, but it's that connection to purpose. Connection to why you're doing something. And the fulfillment you get from that.
Yeah.
That if you can create an environment or create a job or create an opportunity where you can gain that fulfillment from that purpose.
Yeah.
And yes, there's I guess the money side as well. And majority of professional athletes don't necessarily earn the money that they probably want out of their career.
Yeah.
There's the lucky few that have like great opportunities, and they probably can sleep a little bit easier at night knowing they've got a number of things covered. But it's those probably majority of cricketers, sports people, that may only have a 4 or 5 year career.
Yeah.
And it's that battle between the all right, I need to earn money.
Yeah.
All right, I might need to take a job that's maybe not giving myself the most fulfillment right now. And so that's the challenge. So how, like, from your perspective of seeing other people who might not have had the opportunities money wise, like how do they go about trusting the path of following their purpose or discovering their why? And I guess what advice would you have for them, not knowing that they probably weren't as lucky getting an IPL contract or some of the opportunities? Like I'm interested in that aspect.
It's a great question, and I think I'll use this example, right? So, and this was something I learned over time, because I have to acknowledge that I've been very fortunate in this space. But like you said, not everybody has the direct opportunity maybe that we've had. But I'll use this opportunity as that example. So let's say in this case, you are that person where you might not be earning massive dollars around the world that would necessarily set you up for life, right? However, that opportunity that you got has the potential to influence something that you really want to do. Example, the podcast.
Yeah.
So you've had to do something maybe that does not necessarily line up with, let's say, purpose, but it earns you income to influence something else that gives you the fulfillment and purpose. So that has a purpose to that,
right?
But it might not have a direct purpose of what the end result is.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, so my best mate shared this with me, because I was telling him, like, I mean, I like this broadcasting thing, I'm not sure about it because I can't walk away feeling fulfilled. And then he said this to me: do you know that the fact that you're doing that has an opportunity for you to fund certain programs in your foundation? And it just sunk. It's like, there are times where we're going to have to do things that we don't particularly enjoy, but it has a purpose to serving something else that brings you great fulfillment.
Right.
And that was another penny drop moment for me, that there's always a greater purpose to what we do. We just have to be open to see the red car.
Yeah, the red, boom, full circle. Love that. But that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like, go on that journey of discovering what makes you happy, what gives you fulfillment. If you're not there right now, it's like, at least do the best you can with the job that you've got at the moment.
Yeah.
And put some time aside or whatever it is to kind of go on that journey of discovering what actually gives you fulfillment. Because you're right, you're exactly right. We have this dream that we're going to find this exact job that's going to pay us what we want.
Yeah.
It's going to give us fulfillment. No, all those that dreamland of the perfect explosion of whatever it is. And the reality is that that's not reality.
Yeah.
And it might happen in little spurts and things like that.
Yeah.
I've got so many kind of questions. I've got a whole book of questions that I've asked, but I want to kind of circle back to that JP21 Foundation.
Sure.
Because that's not necessarily a money earner for you.
No,
it's not. It's something that you've started
Yeah.
So how much is the journey of starting that and the opportunities that you've got through that? How is that in terms of your life and your and how you're going about your coaching and stuff? Like, it's probably an obvious answer that it has given you fulfillment, like serving of others and things like that. But what was the process of starting that?
Yeah.
And did someone approach you? Did you want to start it?
It was actually my dad planted the seed years ago, and coming from a community that wasn't privileged, and this community in itself is a massive one. It's an area in Cape Town called Mitchell's Plain, so that's where I grew up. And my dad, my dad was a massive influence in particularly my teenage years from a cricketing perspective. Really drove me. He was quite hard about it, and he always planted the seed that you've got to use your opportunities to help others. And I never quite understood what that meant. So in 2015, somebody approached me to ask if I could partner with him in creating this program in our community, which I did. I just financially supported it initially. But then I saw that it was kind of hitting a ceiling in the impact. And then I realized for this to really gain legs, I'm going to have to take hold of what we do and how we do it. And that's where the JP21 Foundation was birthed in 2015. Essentially what we do, we run primary school cricket in this community. So there's 54 primary schools in this community. Before we started, there were only 4 playing cricket. So we created the structure, we provided the kit, we provided infrastructure to a degree because not a lot of the schools had facilities. So, through our partnership with a cement company in PPC Cement in South Africa, we've built concrete pitches for schools. So essentially now to date, we've got 38 schools that play in a league structure. And that varies from age group to age group. We've got obviously mini cricket as well, but we facilitate this. So we've got about over 2,000 kids active a week in this program. But it's so much more than that because there's so many negative influences in this community. Alcohol abuse, drug abuse, gangsterism, which is extremely rife in this community. And unfortunately, the kids of the community see the gangsters as role models. And you can't blame them because they see what they have, the materialistic aspects of that. So what we're doing is using cricket as a vehicle to influence them in a positive way, to understand that what they see in front of them doesn't have to be the reality. And I fully get that they see me as a role model. So my behaviors and the way I inspire, unite, and motivate them is important. Hence me coming back to this idea of, equipping myself from a public speaking point of view, because it has power of how we inspire others. So that's how it started, and we've grown obviously to date. Now, I think one of the most successful stories for us right now is a kid that started with us in 2015, got his first provincial contract with one of the Division 1 teams, Northwest in South Africa. And to see him score his first 100 and performing well just gives us so much joy and fulfillment. So that's the great success story. However, that's not the ultimate purpose. It's, yes, we want to facilitate and help, if there are talented kids, fulfill a career. But it's not only about that. If there's opportunities to go elsewhere, and because we've got a bursary program as well, so providing education and just creating hope and aspiring them to live a life with purpose, to influence their community in a positive way. We've seen how this has impacted parents. Parents coming to the games and watching their kids play, and kids getting excited to come to school. I mean, that's the fulfilling story, really. So we're continuously looking of opportunities to expand and influence, but it's been so fulfilling, man. And in the process, we're providing jobs, obviously, for our coaches and coordinators, which ultimately has a direct impact on the community.
Yeah, that strikes a chord with me, because one of my interests and passions is, and something that I want to try and actively do more of, is this thing around finding outliers within those communities, and especially kids that have got some sort of talent, whether it be music, arts, or sport, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and giving them an opportunity to then excel in that space, to then go back to their community and be a role model for that community.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we do like a big broad brush,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't quite have the impact that you wanted to land. And so the kid that is now played for Northwestern, like he's a role model now that you can use.
Oh yeah,
to
100%.
come
And we've
back.
done it already.
Yeah, exactly. But and now
already.
they go, okay, there's a kid who looks like me, who came from the same spot as me, and now he's playing this cricket. And okay, this is cool. And hopefully that's 2 or 3, and it's like that pyramid kind of theory behind it. So that's something I definitely want to go forth and do. And again, I think sometimes you wait to have all that money.
Yeah.
To that. Oh, when I earn that money, then I'll start that charity.
Yeah.
But I'm like, come on, Logan, man. Like, you can do this.
Yeah.
Before before you get the money, you can create a structure or introduce yourself to people with money.
Yeah.
Give them the idea, and
I think listening to you talk about how you started this podcast, you respond well to challenges, and maybe that's what it takes. It's just like somebody probing you. Come on, man, let's just do it. Or tagging along with someone, and all of a sudden it kickstarts, and next year down the line, you're in a space that when you think back a year ago, you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
Look at the podcast.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, that's exactly, and that story gives me kind of inspiration to go, come on, man. You can do this, and the
theme of the World Cup is it takes one day.
It takes one day. I know, exactly. I'm still trying to work out if that's the right theme, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
But it is. It's like the fulfillment that you're getting out of that, the serving of others. Yeah. And I know it. I've seen it. I've felt it. It's like, that's it. Like, yes, I want to play cricket for as long as possible. It's a vehicle to create a network, opportunities to be here in India.
Yeah.
To play in front of the world is just epic. But it's like, how can I go about it to find that fulfillment, so that when my time is to smoothly transition, whether it is down the media or into coaching, or if it's into corporate, whatever it is, it's like, if I can set myself up that I've got those avenues in my life that create that fulfillment. And I'm a massive conscious guy where my goal each day is to get to the end of the day, and my conscience is clear, and I'm happy. I can sit down and just
live in the moment
and just watch TV without a care in the world, in terms of I've done everything. I'm feeling good in my heart. My relationships are great. I'm excited to wake up tomorrow morning to do X, Y, and Z. And the pursuit of that excites me. And so
it's a privilege, man. And I think just listening to that perspective is inspiring. I had this interesting conversation with Eric Simons. As I mentioned earlier, he's 61 years old and like, wealth of wisdom. So my question to him was, what's your perspective on life? As simple as it gets, live for the now. And I hear a lot of that in what you're talking about, is you ultimately giving your best effort for now, and trying to serve and trying to be the best you can be and do the best you can do. And you can put your head down on your pillow at night, that was cool. Or it wasn't. Yeah. But it's the acceptance piece.
Yeah.
And then listening to being excited to wake up. That's a pretty cool perspective on life, right? Yeah. So well done, man.
No, I appreciate it. And the journey of this, and hopefully you're getting stories from the likes of yourself, and it could be more cricketers along the next 4 or 5 weeks, but then to continue and just ask the question. Everyone's willing to sit down and chat. And they want to share their knowledge. They want to, they've had experiences. They want to sit down and chat. And so it not only inspires me, but that's again, I want to try and help other sports people to go, how can you be excited for your life after cricket as well?
Yeah.
Not just thinking that these next 5 or 10 years I have to earn this much money, I have to win this or make this team or play IPL or things like that. and then I can live the rest of my life fulfilled. Doesn't really work like that. You've done all those things, and you still continue to find that journey. So no, I again, any opportunity. We're gonna finish this episode here now. I'm gonna be fizzed. I'm not training tonight.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fizzed. So like, if I have a great game tomorrow, I'm just gonna point to JP and say, "Hey, thanks, mate." But no, again, thank you so much for giving your time to sit down. I feel like we could just continue and go down avenues
Sure.
but again, appreciate it. And I hope we connect in the future at some point, somehow. It'll be awesome.
Sweet.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. That's it.